became a Christian when I was pretty young, so sometimes it's hard to think back to the sin that I struggled with, before up to that time. So I think I'll speak more to what I've struggled with, before I kind of came back to Christ, and then even, as I've walked with Christ. Issues of wanting to try to control everything, wanting to take it for me, praying to God, like, take this so I don't have to, and then almost in the same breath taking it back again. And because I want to have control and I want to try to play the role of God, sometimes it leads me to have anxiety because I can't do that, because I'm not capable of doing that, and it's not even the role that I should be playing. That sin of wanting control has led at sometimes in my life to anxiety. And I wish I could say that when I became a Christian, it was all behind me, but it's still something that I continue to struggle with. And I think sometimes of how Paul talked about, I know what I'm supposed to do, and then I end up doing what I hate. And so that's something that happens to me. I end up doing what I hate. I end up falling into the same sin patterns that I even fell into before I kind of came back to Christ.
I don't remember very much about going to church as a child. I would not say that I grew up in the church. I know my parents brought our family from time to time at different points in my life, and we always went on Christmas and Easter. All that I remember about it was not liking it, and I remember that I had to dress up, usually in clothes that I didn't like, and more than just literally having to dress up, I remember that thinking that just showing up as myself was not good enough. Like I'd have to dress up my personality or put on an act to be, as close to perfect as I could be. As I headed into adolescence, I tend to indulge my rebellious nature here and there. It wasn't anything that people would have noticed if they didn't really know me. I think people looked at me and they just saw a good girl because I did well in school. I worked really hard at everything I did. I was responsible, in my jobs. Not knowing God, I didn't have any internal personal conviction to really, stick to God's law. As long as I was doing really well by the world's standards, I didn't feel any motivation to turn from my sin. Until one day I wasn't doing very well at all because I was pregnant and unmarried and feeling really, really sick.
I became a Christian when I was, in my early teens. I went to Christian college and I had a lot of Christian friends, and I don't want to say it was sheltered because it was good, but when I kind of came out of that and I had a couple of jobs and I ended up living overseas for a while, I really came away from Christ, and I didn't even really realize it until I was back in the country and I started going to church again, and I realized, wow, I've let this go. I haven't worked on this, and in the meantime of not working on it, I've fallen backwards. It was about 7 or 8 years ago that I kind of came back to Christ and started, pursuing my faith again and pursuing Him again. And that's a continual struggle. When I think back and realize, wow, I've been a Christian for almost 20 years and I feel like I should be farther than I am, So those struggles that I talked about of wanting to have control, they still come up. I think I'm doing a better job right now of seeing the starts of it and, and laying it out before God and saying, take this from me. I know myself enough to know what I want to do with it, that I want to play your role, God, so just take it and don't let me take it back again.
Actually, my interest in Christianity started from just a basic world civilization class in college where we had to read various religious texts. And ironically, I was really fascinated by the Gnostic Gospels. I read that with great fascination, and then I did some more reading to find out like why these books were left out of the Bible. And I ended up reading a lot of much better books, and eventually portions of the Bible itself. Also in college, I had a Christian roommate who led Bible studies. I never went, but we always talked about them. And I had a friend who invited me to this college-age youth group. So I went, and I really liked it. I went on a regular basis for a while, and I even started occasionally going to that church on Sundays. And I really loved, learning more about Christianity, about Jesus, and I loved reading the Bible, but I still sort of held on to that, the fear from my childhood that I wasn't good enough, that maybe my sins weren't really forgivable. There were a few people who came alongside me and really supported me. One of them was a worship director at a church that I started attending. She was just really kind and gracious to me and very accepting. And since that's what I had always feared about going to church, that was just a breath of fresh air for me. I felt like I could trust the church, and it led me to trust Christ more. Eventually, I had to make a big decision, because I was gonna have this baby, and I'm so glad that I had him, because him coming into my life forced me to finally accept Christ and to really turn my life toward what God would want it to be, and gave me a real purpose.
Well, I was baptized as an infant, and so when I really became a Christian, it just didn't seem like something I had to do, because it, had already been done. But through my time as a Christian, I've continually thought, this is a step that I skipped. I skipped something, and I, whenever I read about it, or I read to my kids about it, or or when Ed preached a sermon about it again, especially, I thought, I should do this, and I shouldn't try to skip something that clearly is important. For me at this time specifically, I think that God's kind of pushing me and saying, all right, you've come a ways, but I've got more for you. I've got bigger things for you, and that doing this is showing that I'm ready to leap in there with him.
And I was actually baptized as an infant, but since I had no part in that decision, and I don't remember it whatsoever, that doesn't really count in my mind. But I think for a long time I sort of used that as an excuse not to be baptized as an adult. I just said, well, I did that as an infant, so maybe I don't have to. Another reason I think I put it off was for a while I was going to a church that tended to, or at least some people in the church tended to equate baptism with salvation. And I think, I just wanted to argue that philosophy and kind of rebel against that train of thought. So I put off, I just wasn't going to be baptized. I heard Pastor Ed talk about baptism back in May or June. I really came, I learned from him that it was a step that I could take in obedience to God. And that really took away any of my excuses. I do want to be obedient to God. I want my children to see me being obedient to God, and this is one really clear, tangible way that I can that I can do that.
When I think back on times in my life when I've gotten far from Christ, at those times I did not have good Christian friends who said, hey, what is going on? Who held me accountable. And I'm really, really thankful to God that He has now at this stage put me in a place and given me Christian friends who I feel like are holding me accountable. I'm really thankful to be at a place right now where I feel really challenged in my faith, and I mean, doing this leap of being baptized is not something I'm totally comfortable with, and I've been, at other places and kind of felt like, oh, I can kind of get away with this. I just keep getting away with the fact that I haven't done this, and I feel right now, in part because I'm at a church that's, that is pushing me to do more.
And when my family moved here to this area about 1.5 years ago, I met a couple of the Terra Nova members. They were really nice people, and they both invited me to come here. So, I came to church here and brought my family. We've found this to be a really good place for us. We've all learned so much about Jesus, about the Bible. We've made really a lot of close friendships and really experienced the support and accountability that our tribe members have given us. So although I put off being baptized this long, I am really glad that I can do it with this community.